Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today.
Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, live, but not from New York, Brooklyn Tanner. Thank you so much for tuning in to our podcast today. It's the America's Still Beautiful podcast to remind you that our country and world really is still beautiful. Good news is happening every day, and we are here to report it right into your headphones. So, enjoy the free show today. It's always free, and we're always here at least 4 times a week. So, it's August. Can you believe it? It's already August. We're a few days in, and I don't know, to me, July just went by in a flash. It was so fast, and just, I feel like the weeks went by like days, and man, it's still getting hotter, but it went by really fast, and I think that was a nice little change of pace from how a little bit slow the rest of the year has felt, right? So, how was July for you? What was the best thing that happened to you in July? Let me think. Well, I think like I mentioned last episode, so I'll be tacky and mention it again. It was my birthday, and I had a lot of fun with my family, so I was really grateful for that. So maybe think about what's the best thing that happened to you in July. Maybe you had a really good dinner one night, or you got to talk to a friend that you haven't in a while. That's kind of a special thing about this year, is that I have been able to reconnect with friends that I really haven't talked to in a long time. Just because you're social distancing from everybody, it kind of opens up the opportunity to like be on the same level with everybody because you're not seeing them, right? So it helped me like remember people that I wanted to actually talk to, check in with, and get updates about. So that's been really, really great. And I've been grateful for the people that have checked in on me too. So I hope you're feeling great. I hope you're feeling good. I hope that you have some really great things about your day today. And we're so grateful that you chose to listen to the podcast as one of them. We have some really special stories today. First of all, we're going to talk about the big news, the big splashdown. Do you already know what that is? I'll tell you in just a second here. We also have some inspiring stories, including one about Shaq. Yeah, Shaquille O'Neal, that's right. He gave a big helping hand to somebody recently, which I thought was really sweet. And we also have some great news about the environment, as always, so that's always good to hear. And we have some great fun stories to, actually some new research to give us some more information about decreasing the risk of dementia and some hobbies to add years to your life. So whether you're young or old, there's a lot of great things going on the podcast today. So let's get started into our stories. So new word that I heard this week is splashdown, and it's so impactful. The splashdown refers to kind of like a touchdown, kind of like a takeoff, maybe. Splashdown is the landing that the 2 astronauts that have been in space for the past 2 months made this weekend. That's right. Those 2 astronauts, they went into space. They were there. They spent 2 months in the space station, and this weekend they touched down in the ocean right off the coast of Florida. So SpaceX is the newer space company that is sponsoring these missions in conjunction with NASA. So the SpaceX Crew Dragon makes the historic first splashdown to return NASA astronauts home. Very, very exciting. The 2 astronauts that went are Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley. Have you heard about these guys yet? They are astronauts and they've been waiting so long to get into space. And finally they got to. Did you see the launch when it first happened on May 30th? It was actually scheduled for like 3 or 4 days previous to that, but it was too windy when it was actually time to blast off the spaceship. So they delayed that for a few more days. Can you imagine? It's kind of like getting your flight delayed. Oh, like you can't get to Chicago in the next couple hours, but we'll get you on the next flight. Oh no, the conditions aren't quite practical for space travel, so we're gonna just blast off the rocket later. Oh, it's just amazing how even something so huge is not perfectly plannable, right? There's always Mother Nature to coordinate with. So I'm glad they got in safely. It was a really incredible launch. You can still go on and watch the video. It's so exciting. And just watching the speedometer go up while the rocket was blasting off was just so incredible. It was like, it goes so fast, you know, and it's just faster than you'll ever go in your car or on your airplane, but it just needs all that speed to get all the way up through the atmosphere. So it is really incredible. All right, so the story that happened this weekend is that these 2 astronauts, Bob and Doug, were in the space station for 2 months doing some research and exploring up there, and this is just amazing. So then from the space station, they loaded up into this individual kind of pod-looking thing to bring them back down to Earth. It looks so little, like compared to the huge rocket that got them up there. So let's see. Oh yes, this is amazing. So they're of course they live stream videoed the whole thing, this pod thing coming down, and they have like 2 streamers kind of up above, and then once they got to a certain point, it released into 4 humongous parachutes. It's kind of fun because they look like jellyfish. They like come down. So it's this little capsule that the 2 astronauts are in. It's called a Crew Dragon capsule, and it's carrying the NASA astronauts, and it's splashed down off the coast of Pensacola, Florida at 2:48 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on August 2nd, bringing an end to the SpaceX historic mission called the Demo 2 mission to the International Space Station. And while this was a huge mission, it's actually a mission that they accomplished to gear up for an even longer one that's supposed to last 6 months, and that's supposed to take off sometime in September, and they are on track for that. So the SpaceX Mission Control radioed the 2 astronauts aboard the capsule as soon as they got onto the water, and it says, "Thanks for flying SpaceX. Welcome back to planet Earth." Can you imagine, like, just like a Southwest attendant, like, gets on the radio? She's like, "Thank you for flying Southwest. Welcome to Chicago. Oh no, thanks for flying SpaceX. Welcome back to planet Earth." Pretty surreal. Hurley radioed back one of the astronauts, and he said, "It was truly our honor and privilege." He said, while still in space, that he said the experience is one he certainly won't forget. You'd think, right? Hopefully you never forget going to space. It's incredible. He also went on to say, "It's hard to put into words just what it was like to be a part of this expedition, Expedition 63. It'll be a kind of memory that will last a lifetime." Wow, so that is just absolutely thrilling. There's a lot of really cool information about the space mission and about SpaceX. It's really great that technology is improving and the United States can get even more space travel in with NASA, right? There's even more resources now, and so it's so exciting. So a little bit more about the mission is that, like I said, it started on May 30th, and SpaceX's Falcon 9 launched the crew into a second demonstration mission from Launch Complex 39A, which is the NASA Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And the next day, the Crew Dragon autonomously docked into the International Space Station. Yeah, that's a long flight. The test flight with NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley on board the Dragon spacecraft returned human spaceflight to the United States. So it's actually been a while since we've had astronauts up in the universe, right? There was lots of amazing missions. It's actually the 50th anniversary of the moon landing was just last year. And so it's incredible to see how far we've come and very exciting to get astronauts back into space again. They were in space for 63 days. What a vacation, right? Maybe not much sun, though. The Crew Dragon was there with the 2 NASA astronauts aboard the spacecraft. Autonomously, they undocked and departed from the orbiting laboratory at 7:35 p.m. on Saturday, August 1st. So, like, they kind of left the hotel, maybe, is what we can think of it as, the space station where they were working and analyzing things in space. They left it on Saturday, and they were able to splash down in the Gulf of Mexico off the coast of Florida at 2:48 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, August 2nd. That is a really long flight, right? Through the night and then most of the morning and afternoon, they were just making a straight shot down, right? And how incredible that we have the technology where they can, from space, I mean, way past our atmosphere, they know the coordinates to just drop straight down at the proper speed and then release those parachutes at just the right time and then land in the ocean so close to all the resources to be able to make their safe landing. So we're so glad that they're back on our Earth safely. This Demo 2 mission is the final major milestone for SpaceX's human spaceflight system to be certified by NASA for operational crew missions to and from the International Space Station, making it easier to get up into space as we do more of these trips. Once the Demo 2 mission is complete and the SpaceX and NASA teams have reviewed all of the data for certification, these new astronauts will be able to get into space. So the ones waiting for their ticket are Victor Glover, Mike Hopkins, Shannon Walker, and JAXA astronaut Soichi Noguchi, and they will fly on Dragon's first 6-month operational mission, which is going to be called Crew 1, and it's targeted again for late September. So really exciting that we're getting some more astronauts in space just coming up here in a few weeks, and female astronauts at that. Oh, that's super exciting. You can find more information, including a lot of really cool diagrams and amazing photos on the SpaceX website, spacex.com. So the pictures are just so much fun. The diagrams really clearly illustrate from the space station, how the rocket got from the Earth and then up to the space station, and then that little pod that they used to make their departure. They started with a departure, and then they have the phasing burns, and then a part of it clicks off so that it can fall better and do the jettison, and then they have the deorbit burn where it flies with some fuel for a while, and then re-entry into the atmosphere, and then the parachutes deploy, and then the safe splashdown into the ocean. I never really thought of how they would land, right? You take off, the rocket takes off from the ground, obviously, but I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It would be a lot safer to splash down instead of touchdown, right? So I'm so glad our astronauts made it back safe. These pictures of them are just grinning from ear to ear, and obviously their space suits look so cool. So you should go on the website and watch the videos and see the photos that they have there. There's the videos of the launch and the landing, as well as some really cool other things in between, and more information about the upcoming space launch. There has been a lot of talk on the internet in the past decade or so about just having passenger flights to the moon or to Mars, where there's hope that we could normalize space travel in a way and make it safe enough that people could, just like going on vacation, could buy a ticket, get on a spaceship, and then fly up to the moon and spend some time on there. I would like to say that I would be totally down to do that, but I don't know. It's very intense. I think a lot of kids, when they're in school, think, oh yeah, I definitely want to be an astronaut or something like that. And, you got really that spirit of adventure, but I'll have to tap into that more because the thought of going to the moon just on vacation honestly scares me a little bit. It's like, wow, literally going out of this world. I mean, it would be so incredible. So I don't know if I could pass the opportunity up, but it would be pretty crazy to go into a different atmosphere and, not only be far away from my family, like a boat ride or a plane ride away, but a whole planet away. Wow, that is just incredible. So when you look up at the night sky tonight and see the stars and the moon and maybe a planet or two, just remember that amazing Americans have been up there and are getting back up there really soon. So awesome. All right, that is it for space reporting, but stay tuned because after this little break, we are going to hear an amazing story about a very dedicated artist mother who was very clever in raising money for her daughter's medical needs, as well as Shaquille O'Neal, who was stopped to help a stranded stranger. Stay with us. We'll see you right after the break.
The GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. What's the thing that you've missed the most since having the social distancing orders in place? Have you been missing out on some things? Of course, I've missed out on some trips that I wish I could have taken this year, but I think one of the things I'm really missing the most is just being able to kind of mosey through stores and peek at things in person, because it's one of those things that I like to do. It's just relaxing to walk through some aisles of the grocery store or just a clothing store, usually like a discount store. I really like to walk through and kind of look at the knickknacks there, not necessarily buy stuff, but just kind of look around there. But now we know that it's safer to stay home a little bit more, and so I'm grateful that we can still online shop, which is really, really great. But I wanted to of course, tell you the amazing stories about Shaq and this amazing mom. But first of all, we have an incredible story about a neighborhood in Chicago who is reinventing the corner store. Isn't that one of the most charming phrases, the corner store? It sounds like a little romance novel waiting to bloom out of this setting, right? Anyway, so this article on Bloomberg is about how Chicago is reinventing the corner store. It's an effort to convert a grocery store into Chicago's Inglewood neighborhood into a fresh food market with floor-to-ceiling glass and walk-in refrigerators. And it's just the first step in a new plan to inject needed investment into the area. So the Go Green on Racine aims to turn one block of neighborhood hit hard by the coronavirus into a nexus of new public health, housing, job training, and green space projects. It's pretty awesome, right? So something that's had a difficult run during this year, they've decided to throw some extra positivity at to make it even more beneficial for the community. It's set in a neighborhood with high unemployment and food insecurity, so the project will convert vacant or underused properties in the area for community uses. And a contributor, Zach Mortrice, reported about this. A former elementary school, for example, is slated to become a transitional house for people returning from incarceration, and organizers are advocating to reopen a defunct train station. That's pretty awesome. That makes a lot of sense. Buildings that aren't being used, why not use them to help people? So formerly, actually, you can think of this as kind of a Green New Deal, but mini size, or a block size urban Marshall Plan. I really like this thought, and I think it's a really great opportunity to see, like, in our own lives, how we can take maybe something that isn't super desirable or something that's been shut down in our lives because of COVID-19 or other circumstances, and how we can reinvent that into something beautiful, helpful, and fun. Maybe there's something in your life that, it doesn't seem so great right now, but I bet you could even, make it something beautiful. It all goes back to the cliche, right? When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Unless you like lemons, then just eat the lemons. I really like lemons. All right, there's another great story I want to share with you, something I saw on Facebook. It's a mom who is selling Disney watercolor paintings to pay for her little girl's cranial helmet. So sometimes kids need these helmets. They are to help shape the head because when babies are born, their skulls are not all the way together. Can you believe that? That's because they need to be very malleable to get through the birthing process. And so after that process, sometimes they kind of stay in more of a cone shape, or they don't come all the way together to close the sutures. But it's pretty common for kids to need a little bit of assistance reshaping the head into a shape that protects the brain really well. And so these cranial helmets are a really great option for healing this issue. However, most insurances don't cover them yet. So this mom reached out on Facebook and she says, "My precious little girl needs a cranial helmet next month. Unfortunately, my insurance is not covering any of it. I'm selling all the Disney paintings I have, and all the money will be going towards her cranial helmet to shape her head correctly. Any amount will help, and there's no shipping cost. Thank you so much for helping us out." These are really cute paintings. She's a very, very talented artist. And I love that instead of being worried or freaking out or totally freezing in her tracks or thinking that this was the end of the road or anything, she pulled up her bootstraps and she realized that she had a talent. And these paintings have been just flying off the canvas, or the shelf, whatever. They are really cute little paintings. They've kind of got this like slightly abstract and like splattered style of Disney characters. I see like Monsters Incorporated, Woody, Ursula. The Ursula one is really, really cool. And of course she's got cute pictures of her baby. And so this is just a local mom in Utah who put her talents to use to help support her little girl and the things that she was going through. So she posted a little update. So this was she originally started this 4 weeks ago, and she posted a little update saying, "We almost have her helmet all paid for. Thank you so much." I just think this is so great because obviously the mom is fabulous, just doing what she can to help her kids be healthy and happy and have the best chance in life that they possibly can, but also her community gathering around her to buy something that really goes for a good cause. So her paintings are super cute. I love them. And everyone always wants something a little bit personalized and fun. So I think like everybody's favorite Disney character is on here in her pictures. So really, 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 really cute idea. And I love how she put her talents to use to help out her mom. Oh, because no, she's the mom and she helped out her baby. Speaking of being a really big help, this next story is about Shaquille O'Neal. No, we haven't quickly switched to the GSMC sports or basketball podcast. This is a really good news story that just happens to feature a sports star. So if you don't know who Shaquille O'Neal is, that's okay. He is a former basketball player. He used to play for the Lakers. And do you know how tall he is? Take a quick guess. Now add some inches. Now add 6 more inches. Now just like double it because Shaq is 7 feet and 1 inch tall. I mean, like solidly over 7 feet tall. Man, that's really tall. His shoe size is 22. I don't think he'll love me sharing this, but my wonderful husband he is a size 15 in shoes. And like, we can't find shoes for him anywhere. You have to really like dig around, go to like certain stores that sometimes have a random sneaker on clearance that's like size 14 or 15. It's really, really hard to find those shoes. And often we just have to order them online very specifically. I cannot even imagine what size 22 foot looks like. That is just, it's very incredible. It's very enormous. And hey, it's probably very good for his cobbler, right? I'm sure he has to get custom shoes. I can't even like fathom how big that is. But he, anyway, he was a basketball player, obviously took his height to very good use. He was a very acclaimed basketball player, and now he's an analyst on a television program inside the NBA. So he's a sportscaster and commentator. Now, sometimes we mostly hear about athletes in the athletic arena, right? But there is a new video that was posted of Shaq helping out a roadside motorist who got a flat tire. So this incredible video features Shaq, and obviously Shaq did not take this video himself. Shaq is short for Shaquille. It's like kind of his, nickname. But the deputy officer who actually responded to the incident started taking video once he got there because, and then he talked to the family, and this family was driving along, and they actually, this is in San Diego, and they actually got a flat tire, and they pulled over, and Shaq saw it happen, so he pulled over, and he tried to help. He helped the family just to make sure everyone was okay. It looked like it was a little bit of a rough ride, a little bit of a rough stop, but he stuck around. He stayed with them until the deputies were able to arrive and help them out with their car. There turned out to be a lot of different issues with their car, but, maintaining social distancing still, he was there to help. And then once the deputies got there to help, them all push the car out of the side of the road. So they got a flat tire, and then it kind of got stuck in some bushes nearby. So, after that, Shaq stayed for half an hour to help them out. And then he gave fist bumps all around to everybody, to let them know to stay safe. And I thought it was a really cool video because a lot of times celebrities are mostly known for their talents and their amazing accomplishments, right? Or maybe they're in our favorite sitcom or something really dramatic, maybe even something not so great. But this was a really refreshing video to see how a celebrity totally just as a normal person stopped to help somebody nearby and just to be a friend when, they were stranded alone on the side of the road. I think I would feel a lot better about my tire popping or getting stranded in my car if Shaq was kind of there to back me up, right? So that's really, really encouraging to see. And I think a lot of times the media doesn't pick up on things like this because the things that sells ads or sells the exciting viewership are dramatic or bad or scary stories about celebrities, right? Or celebrity gossip, right? But it turns out that when you look for truth and you look for the good, there really is a lot of it. And those are the kind of stories that actually enhance our lives and make them better. So props to Shaquille O'Neal for being a great example to help out somebody in need. But of course, there are plenty of people who help others in their community on a daily basis, and they don't get recognized as an athlete or anything, but that's what we're trying to do here on America's Still Beautiful, is bring you the big national and the small local stories about people who are helping each other. So, what can you do to help somebody today? Maybe you don't see a motorist stranded on the side of the road, but could your family use a little bit of help? Maybe it's somebody else's turn to do the dishes, but you could sneak in there and get them all done before they make it. I think that would be an amazing surprise. I know I would love that, right? Take on somebody's chore. You could also write a thank you note to somebody who was really kind or nice to you lately, and somebody who made a good impact on you, or maybe write a note to a former teacher who you remember. I have a wonderful teacher that I remember, and lately I think things have been hard for them, and so I wrote them a letter and hope that makes them feel better. Anyway, just know that we're so grateful to have you here as a listener. Thanks for contributing to the good in the world, and you really are powerful, and in your circle of influence you can make a big difference. So don't be afraid to go ahead and use your talents to help other people today. All right, it's time for another little break because you know me, I need my snacks. And so stay tuned because coming up we have some very exciting stories about the environment, including increasing safety in tunnels and a material that is allegedly self-healing and outsmarting nature. Stay tuned for after the break. You'll hear it all here on GSMC America Still Beautiful.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
To the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Long time no hear, right? I'm Brooklyn, your host, and I have more great stories coming up for you right now. This is something really interesting. The headline from chemeurope.com says, "A self-healing soft material outsmarts nature." This is a new stretchy material that entirely recovers its structure and properties in the blink of an eye, and it can do it again and again. A soft material that heals itself instantaneously suddenly is now a reality. A team of science at the Max Planck Institute of Intelligent Systems at Pennsylvania State University tuned the nanostructure of a new stretchable material in such a way that it now entirely recovers its structure and properties in the blink of an eye if it's cut or poked. So imagine like a sheet of plastic wrap, and you put it over something you put it over your food to protect it. And then your little brother comes and stabs a pencil in there. That's not good because the oxygen's going to flow in. But what if the plastic wrap just healed itself back together? That'd be pretty incredible, right? Well, that's kind of the concept of this new material. It's actually inspired by squids. The material is squid inspired, and it could revolutionize the research field of soft robotics. Since it can reverse any undergone damage, it makes many real-world applications possible in which robots have to deal with dynamic and unpredictable environments. So, Dr. Abdon Pina Francesc is the lead author of this paper that is being published to explain this amazing new material. He said, "We have developed a new material that can heal much faster without losing its strength. We tested it with all kinds of extreme mechanical damage, and it repaired within seconds." Can you imagine? I really want to see a video of this where it's like, it just sounds like magic. It just dissolves back together. Wow. So actually, the reason this research was sparked is because self-healing soft materials are attracting growing interest in the scientific community, particularly in robotics, because supernatural material could tip the scale in enabling a range of robots to come to application in everyday life. Robots already help us a little bit, like Alexa, play your favorite song, or like turning on the lights, or other especially in factories, robots are used to make amazing things. So, of course, they're always trying to further the field that can make our lives easier, right? So with this softer material, the more vulnerable it is to damage. But it's more flexible that way, so it can be used for many different tasks. And this can limit the robot's longevity if the material is too soft, of course, and it restricts its practical application. However, the instantaneous self-healing capabilities could make up for this shortcoming. In the future, invincible, self-healing robots could be employed in a broad range of areas, like disaster recovery. The material could also be used in the realm of protective garments that would immediately repair themselves after a cut. That's pretty incredible, right? So this could be used as something to be made into clothes to help protect you. So Dr. Pina Frances and his co-authors, Dr. Jung and Professor Demerel from Pennsylvania State University, looked into nature and the wonders of the earth for guidance on how to build such a smart material. I think that's a really smart place to begin, because many of the great technological inventions have been created by looking at nature first. Did you know that computers actually function in similar ways as the human brain? So a computer engineer that I know personally kind of was explaining this to me on a very basic level to help me understand. And he said that in the early stages of developing computers, they looked to what researches they had about the brain and used those processing grams, like all the ways that the brain processes information and then creates an output. They used those same kind of systems and tried to mimic them in making computers. Now computers are even much more advanced, but they still mirror the processes going on in our brains. So the creation of nature really is an incredible starting point and what we can gain so much from, right? Dr. Pina Frances says, our goal is to create self-healing programmable materials with unprecedented control over the physical properties using synthetic biology. So the team studied the molecular structure and amino acid sequences of squid proteins and developed a new biosynthetic material using protein engineering. So again, looking to nature and the processes that it naturally has to create technology that can be used to enhance our experience in nature. So they built the molecular structure in a way that it can program the self-healing properties. Isn't that incredible? They worked hard so they could use this amazing technology for their benefit and program it, direct it in a certain way. Dr. Daniel says, we were able to reduce a typical 24-hour healing period to 1 second. So our protein-based soft robots can now repair themselves immediately. In nature, self-healing takes a long time. In this sense, our technology outsmarts nature. Wow! So Dr. Pina Frances says that he's been developing self-healing materials for several years. So a process that normally takes 24 hours naturally now takes only 1 second with this material. Isn't that incredible? Wow. That really is just the best of both worlds colliding, right? They used nature, they looked at the squids to see what kind of properties would be helpful in developing their material, and then they took it even further, which technology is supposed to do, to make it even better. So a supramolecular network with an unprecedented self-healing properties not only opens up a vast unexplored terrain of potential application in robotics, but self-repairing physically intelligent soft materials are essential for building robust and fault-tolerant soft robots and actuators for the near future. This is said by Professor Citi. Citi and his team at his research center plan to use this self-repairing soft material in their research on medical soft robots, as well as on robotic grippers. The soft material can help adapt to different shapes and is very flexible, and it's useful in lifting objects. If an object tears the material while being carried around, it can just easily self-heal and then go back to work. Wow, I just love reading about these new inventions. I love being able to be on this podcast because I learn about so much incredible science going on at any given time. So you can read more about this online, and there aren't a lot of pictures available yet, but it kind of has a couple pictures depicting how it's similar to the skin on a squid. Oh, that's a good new tongue twister, theater kids. Skin on a squid, skin on a squid, skin on a squid, do. Okay, well, read more about that if it interests you, and be on the lookout for soft robots able to help out in amazing ways. Would you like some more wonderful stories? I thought so. This article from Tech Explorer explores how sound beacons support safer tunnel evacuation. This was really, really interesting because here's a fear I never even had cross my mind: getting stuck in a tunnel full of smoke. So this is research conducted as a part of a project of evac sound, and it demonstrates that auditory guidance using sound beacons is as effective an aid during the evacuation of smoke-filled road tunnels. So this is an effective new way to help people out. This is really good news, and this fact is that vehicle drivers and passengers cannot normally expect to be rescued by emergency services in such accidents because they might not be able to get there quickly enough to save people. So if you're driving through a tunnel and then something, happens, there's a crash or a fire or something, then the tunnel will quickly fill up with smoke since it's enclosed, right? And you probably can't see or hear enough to be able to get out quickly. So of course, amazing scientists are on it. They're wanting to fix the problem. So researchers have been testing a so-called auditory guidance system to support evacuations from smoke-filled tunnels following vehicle fires. The project is being conducted under contract for Norwegian Public Roads Administration, and the company which develops and supplies intelligent transport systems is heading it up. So, at the company, Gunnar Jensen says, when a fire breaks out, queues will form, vehicles will collide with each other and drive into the tunnel walls. Some will be abandoned in the middle of the road. This makes it difficult for the fire and rescue services to provide any assistance. Fire and rescue response teams may be up to 30 minutes in the most remote tunnels. But they've worked on tunnel safety issues for a long time and in a variety of contexts. So, a universal rescue system is key. That's what they're saying. Therefore, they're trying to develop one. The aim of the VacuSound project is to develop a universal and language-neutral system that can be used as a supplement to existing signage and lighting systems. This is said by Tronstad, a research assistant at the company who is heading up the project. Now, some drivers and passengers may have visual or hearing impairments or other forms of disabilities, so that's why scientists have been testing both visual and auditory guidance systems. This whole thing is sparked on by the fact that there have been tragedies in the past, so they want to help everyone involved in this kind of situation to have kind of a language-neutral auditory or visual guidance system. That's pretty amazing. So the article concludes by saying that in the worst case, you'll only have a couple of minutes before you are no longer able to walk through the tunnel any further, because it'll depend on how close you are to the source of the fire and how extensive it is, and whether or not you're standing on a slope or, different factors. So the experiments were carried out in a cavern excavated under a hill. So 30 people kind of put on these tester things that made it look like there was smoke, kind of like a VR situation, right? And they went through this really realistic simulation to test the devices. So an important element of uncertainty that must be taken into consideration in the light of the evacuation experiments involves situations in which people are tempted to follow a person who assumes the role as like a safe leader, but they might walk in the wrong direction. This is not an unusual situation because smoke that develops around a fire is often the most dense at a distance from the flames. Can you believe that? So if someone assumes the role as a leader, then they might be able to lead somebody astray. So this auditory and visual light and beacon system that they want to implement into the tunnels will provide a safe way to exit them, and so everyone that's inside the tunnel can know the right way to go. Wow, aren't you grateful for technology and the people that just work so hard to keep it going? I mean, you think about 100 years ago, 50 years ago, even 30 years ago, things were not as safe as they are now. I think often we can kind of get caught up in the dangerous parts of the world or the things that we're worried about. But if we think about it, there's just never been a safer time to be alive. Medical technology is improving at such a quick rate. We have vaccinations for many of deadly diseases that have plagued us in the past. And we also have safety features on cars that are just improving every single year. I know when I first had a baby, my mother-in-law was telling, and I was shopping for car seats, and she said how when she had her very first baby, many, over 40 years ago, they kind of had like this little box. It was like a wooden crate that they'd put the baby inside, and there was like this optional kind of strap to go over the box, and she would put the baby in there and then put on the front seat. And how different, what a contrast that is to today. So just so many things to marvel at and so many exciting inventions to read about and hear about here on the podcast. So I hope you enjoyed those stories, and I have a little bit more fun for you after this next break. There's lifestyle changes and hobbies that you can do starting now to decrease the chance of getting dementia. Stay tuned for that.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to GSMC, America Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Thanks so much for joining me today on the podcast. It's been so much fun, and we have even more fun right now. There are some very exciting articles coming out to describe some things you can do to reduce the risk of dementia. Now, dementia is a sad disease that actually plagues a large percentage of people, and usually the most significant factor is memory loss. That's really hard, especially short-term memory loss. So let's jump into this. This is an exciting one from Make It, or the Make It part of CNBC.com. The world's longest living people share this hobby. Why studies say it can add years to your life. Now, the secret hobby that they're talking about here is gardening. And they have some reasons here that are that they say reason this hobby into helping you live longer. Everybody would love to live longer and a little bit happier, right? So let's get into this, see what we think. Why gardening could help you live longer. So number one, they say it gets you into nature. The exposure to sunlight, the fresh air, and the plant life all have health benefits, of course. In fact, doctors in Scotland prescribe, quote, nature walks for high blood pressure patients and patients with anxiety. How interesting is that? They also encourage patients to interact with their surroundings, whether that means bird watching or collecting twigs. Kind of really getting in there and understanding what's going on and feeling it. There's a famous study in 1984, and the environmental researcher Roger Ulrich found that patients who have their gallbladders removed recovered faster and with less pain medication if their hospital rooms looked out onto nature rather than a brick wall. That has definitely improved the designs of hospitals in the last 35 years. Nature really is restorative, and he notes that we have kind of a biologically prepared disposition to respond favorably to nature because we evolved in nature. It was good to us, and we tend to respond positively to environments that were favorable to us. That makes a lot of sense, right? We just naturally are drawn to the places that have given us good benefits in the past. So if being around nature is good for you, then being consistent about it is even better. And that's why gardening pretty much forces you to be in nature. You may try to jog every day in the park or blow it off for a few weeks because you get a little busy, but tending to a garden in the midday. However, you're liable to see that work, go to waste if the weeds take over. So it's something that can kind of hold that accountability in place. Now, number 2 for exercise, they say it's good. And number 2 for gardening is that, surprise, it's good exercise. Gardening is not the equivalent of running a triathlon, but it still qualifies as exercise. Different types of gardening require different amounts of physical activity. Now, Richard Thompson, a researcher at London's Royal College of Physicians, says, working in the garden restores dexterity and strength, and the aerobic exercise involved can easily use the same number of calories as might be expended at the gym. So turning the earth and digging up the stones and maybe getting in there to plant some new plants are very effortful work. And at the other end of this spectrum, pruning roses and bushes and planting seeds is very mild exercise, but still good to work the heart out there in the fresh air. Now, this next one has got to be the one that would convince me the most to give gardening a try. Number 3 says you will eat what you grow. So, of course, this benefit doesn't apply if you're only growing decorative plants or flowers and shrubs. But if you grow fruits and vegetables, as folks in the blue zones do, you'll gain the health benefits of adding these items to your daily diet. So you'll be eating more plants and you'll get the nutrients from them. Of course, fruits and vegetables provide wonderful nutrition. And when you're filling up on those, some people even lose weight if that's a goal of yours. So a natural process of respiration is what helps to give you better nutrients. A natural process in which they continue to breathe after they're removed from the ground, the fruits and vegetables. So if you buy produce at the supermarket, this process has kind of already taken place due to the fruits and vegetables traveling around. But if you grow your own, bam, they're super fresh as they can possibly be. So in terms of reducing the time between harvest and consumption, nothing beats pulling a berry off a bush and popping it into your mouth, or tearing off a lettuce leaf and putting it into a salad. I remember growing up, my grandmother had raspberry bushes. Oh, and it was the most exciting thing when she said, yes, the raspberries are ready, we can go out and pick some. Oh my goodness, I asked every time we would go over there, are they ready? Can we please go get some raspberries? Oh, I always wanted it. Alright, number 4 says, gardening exercises your mind while also relieving stress. Now, most of us spend our work lives planning and problem solving, stressing, and using that stress to get stuff done, right? But while gardening requires these skills, it also forces you to be in the moment, often by confounding the plans that you make. You have to adjust as you go along, enjoy the nature, and really just give the plants what they need as you go along. Sometimes you step into your garden and do exactly the task you intended, but other times they say you have to change course because you notice a fungus infestation or a bunch of produce is suddenly ready to be harvested earlier than you thought. You really got to adjust, and that could really help you implement that skill into other parts of your life. So working in the garden and dealing directly with this natural world also has a way of slowing down the busy thoughts and relaxing your mind, when you can really just focus on one thing, right? So this study is concluding by giving some advice on exercising your green thumb and giving gardening a little bit of a try. So I know there's lots of amazing YouTube channels out there that can help you get started in gardening. So if that's something that interests you, hey, bonus benefit is that it could help you live a little bit longer. Oh, and if you grow anything and you live nearby, you should definitely let me know. I would love to eat something that you grow. In a similar vein, our next article actually reveals some research about how dementia cases might be decreased by some simple lifestyle changes. Now, dementia is a difficult disease that plagues many, many people, especially in old age, and it mostly affects memory. But some causes cannot be changed, like genes or ethnicity, but they are discovering that many of the causes are actually down to lifestyle. So Gil Livingston, a professor of psychiatry of older people at the University of College London, co-authored this report, and he says dementia is potentially preventable you can do things to reduce your risk of dementia whatever stage of life you are in. She adds that such lifestyle changes could really reduce the chances of developing dementia both in those with and without high genetic risk. So this sounds like some information that really could be useful for everybody. Now, after the study, they concluded that these 3 lifestyle changes may improve the chances of reducing the risk for dementia, right? So, the dementia cases worldwide were attributable to excessive midlife alcohol intake, 3% to a midlife head injury, and a result of exposure to air pollution in older age. Although they do caution that the latter could be an underestimate. They're not totally sure about how much the air really affects it, or, what possibly the disease could be even more attributed to air pollution than we know. So some actions really can be taken on a personal level to tackle these issues, and they could require some change just in someone's own circle, but also government-led change, like if they're going to prevent people from being exposed to air pollutants, right? Now, Livingston said, I don't think it's any coincidence that the reductions in dementia prevalence to date have been highly educated people who have more control over their environment. We're expecting by 2050 that 2/3 of people with dementia, if trajectories continue, will be in low-income countries. So that's really hard that those kind of barriers are in place, right? But the more we can get this information out and help people understand how to take better care of themselves, the more chances we have in helping people live longer and much happier lives. So that's some great new information to know. And just to close out our podcast today, I want to share a quote I read by Mark Twain. He says, "The secret of getting ahead is getting started." I think that's such a great thing to remember, that if we have a goal in mind, something that we really want to accomplish, then all we have to do is get started, and that alone will give us a leg up on many other projects that never even go into the beginning phases. So if there's something on your mind, something that you want to do, I know that you can accomplish it. Just get it started. Thank you so much for listening today to the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast. It's brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm Brooklyn, and you can come follow me on Instagram and Twitter at the GSMC accounts. And we ask that you please subscribe to the show so you can enjoy more episodes in the future and share it with a friend. Thanks a lot. Bye!
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows. From the GSMC Podcast Network, from social media news to marketing news, and even weird news, the GSMC Podcast Network has you covered. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast.